The years 1947 to 1973 are seen as the economic golden years in the United States. During that time, there were high rates of productivity, low unemployment, and a rise in wages. Almost everyone was a part of the middle class. But starting in 1980, the situation changed. Even though the U.S. continues to grow economically, the money is being distributed unevenly. Real wages are stagnating, and benefits are shrinking compared to other industrialized countries. So how is the wealth being distributed? In 2004, the top 1%, that's the richest 1% of Americans, owned 34.3% of the wealth. The next 9% owned 36.9%, while the bottom 90%, that's you and me, owned only 28.7%. How is it possible that only 1% of the population can own more than the bottom 90%? When it comes to the stock market, again we see the inequality. The top 1% owns 36.9%, the next 9% owns 41.9%, and the bottom 90% owns only 21.3%. This is the disturbing state of our economy, but it hasn't always been this way. From 1947 to 1973, the lowest fifth, that's the poorest people, saw an increase in wages of 116%. At the same time, all economic groups saw evenly divided growth in income. Compare that to 1973 to 2000, when the bottom fifth only saw a 12.1% increase, while the top fifth saw a 66.9% increase. Real wages, that's wages that account for inflation, also haven't fared well for the poorest. The lowest paid Americans saw their wages starting in 1980 go from $13,000 a year, and 13 years later, in 2003, changed to only $14,000. At the same time, the richest 1% saw their wages grow from $299,000 a year in 1980 to $701,000 in 2003. CEOs have seen incredible growth over the years. In 1960, CEOs were paid around 35 times more than the average employee. In 2000, the pay went from 35 and peaked at 409 times the average employee. Remember, as CEOs get paid more, the employees see less in pay and benefits. In 1979, the private sector provided 69% of employees with health benefits. By 2006, only 55% have health care coverage. Pensions have decreased from 51% in 1979 to 43% in 2006. In economics, we're always told how important productivity is to wages because historically they travel together. They are supposed to move in tandem. That's until 1980, when the two paths began to diverge. There's been an economic revolution, and the public seems to be totally blind, while they are the ones being most effective. They are the ones working more hours. From 1979 to 2002, workers have increased their time at work by 19%. When we compare the United States to other industrialized countries, the difference becomes clear. In Norway, the average employee works 1,336 hours a year, while the U.S. works 1,817 hours. That's a 26% difference. It should also be noted that the per capita GDP, that's how much people are paid, is greater in Norway than in the U.S., while working less. Countries such as Austria, Italy, and Spain guarantee employees 35 days of paid vacation, while in the U.S. there is absolutely no guarantee of time off. Returning to the spreading income distribution, we need to ask who is getting what and how much. Most economists measure this inequality by the Gini coefficient. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, the Gini coefficient started spreading in 1947 from 37.6 to 47 in 2006. What does this mean? Comparatively, the United States is more unequal in its distribution of wealth than countries like Uzbekistan, Russia, Jordan, Azerbaijan, and many others. The U.S. has slowly devolved into what appears to be gaps between the rich and the poor that are comparable not only to third world countries, but totalitarian states. In the 1980s, there was a policy shift, both economically and politically. In graph after graph after graph, we see the splitting. Wages and productivity split. Compensation decreased, and Americans working more hours for less money. So what were the policies that drove all this? In the next video, I'll discuss what drove inequality to unprecedented levels in the U.S. and how both the Democrats and Republicans have been responsible.